You've heard it before. You're too sensitive. You overthink everything. You take things too personally, said casually, dismissively, like a flaw you're supposed to fix. So you tried. You toughened up. You built walls. You told yourself to stop feeling so much. But it never really worked, did it? Because it wasn't about weakness. It wasn't about fragility. It wasn't about being broken. You simply see more. More layers. More signals. More complexity. Where others see a smile, you notice the tightness behind it. Where others hear words, you hear the tension underneath them. Where others walk through the world half asleep, you move through it awake, aware of the invisible, the unspoken, the real. Arthur Schopenhauer, a philosopher known for his brutal clarity, understood this deeply. He believed that sensitivity was not just emotional softness, but a heightened awareness of the pain and beauty intertwined in existence. To him, life itself was suffering, and those who felt it most acutely weren't broken. They were simply more conscious. They saw what others missed. They felt what others ignored. They carried the weight of reality in their chest, while the world danced around them, distracted. And modern psychology confirms it. High sensitivity isn't a defect. It's a trait, one rooted in a nervous system that processes information more deeply, not just emotionally, but neurologically. You absorb more. You process more. You react to subtleties most people never even notice. It's not all in your head. It's wired into your being. And that extra input, that flood of nuance, complexity, and energy, it's overwhelming. Not because you're weak, but because you're operating at a different depth. And here's the real tragedy. In a loud, fast, numb world, depth looks like dysfunction. So they label you. Too sensitive, too dramatic, too much, but maybe they're wrong. Maybe what the world calls too sensitive is actually high fidelity to reality. Maybe you're not broken. Maybe you're just tuned to a frequency most people can't hear. The truth is, seeing more comes with a price. You notice things you wish you could unsee. The little betrayals hidden in polite smiles. The loneliness in crowded rooms. The frustration behind someone's forced calm. You hear it in voices. You feel it in silences. You carry it, even when no one asks you to. And sometimes, it breaks you in ways no one else understands. Because most people move through life protected by their numbness. They filter out complexity. They default to simplicity. They survive by not feeling too much. But you don't get that luxury. Your mind maps patterns others overlook. Your body absorbs undercurrents others deny. Your heart registers sorrow that most people don't even recognize as real. And because of that, the world often feels heavier to you. Not because you're weak, but because you're actually carrying more. And no one sees it. No one thanks you for it. No one says, "Thank you for noticing the thing I couldn't even name." Instead, they call you sensitive, like it's an inconvenience, like it's a flaw, but they don't realize you're the one who feels the tremor before the earthquake, the fracture before the collapse, the sadness before the tears. You are the early warning system, not just for yourself, but for the spaces you walk through. And yes, it wears you down, because seeing more means grieving more, hurting more, loving more deeply than seems survivable. But it also means living more fully. It means noticing the 1,000 tiny miracles hidden inside ordinary days. The look in someone's eyes when they think no one's watching. The softness of a moment that most people rush past. The beauty stitched inside the brokenness. Schopenhauer believed that true depth of feeling was both a burden and a mark of greater connection to existence itself. He saw sensitivity not as a weakness to outgrow, but as a raw, painful, precious proof that you are truly awake. And being awake, it's hard, it's isolating, it's exhausting, but it's real. And in a world built on distraction, numbness, and denial, being real is an act of quiet rebellion. Living with high sensitivity means living with more openings, more ways for beauty to enter, but also more ways for harm to slip in. You don't just hear criticism, you feel it. Not just the words, but the tone, the glance, the energy behind it. You don't just experience loss. You mourn the invisible futures that will now never exist. You don't just walk through crowds. You carry the fragmented emotions of strangers long after you leave them behind. And this is where the true danger lies. Because when you see more, you feel responsible for more. You overextend. You overexplain. You absorb what isn't yours to carry. And slowly, your nervous system begins to fray. Because even if your mind can tell the difference between what belongs to you and what doesn't, Your body reacts to all of it. You get tired without knowing why. You get irritable without a clear trigger. You withdraw without understanding that you're not broken. You're simply overloaded. The psychologist Elaine Aron, who pioneered research on high sensitivity, found that highly sensitive people are not just emotionally reactive. They're neurologically wired to process stimuli more deeply. It's not weakness, it's architecture. Your brain notices more. Your senses intake more. Your system processes more data per second than the average person's. And like any system running at full capacity, without intentional boundaries, you crash. You get labeled dramatic when you react strongly, but no one sees that you've been silently carrying layers of tension long before you snapped. You get called moody when you withdraw, but no one understands that you've absorbed so much noise your mind can no longer function clearly. And so you blame yourself. You push harder. You try to be tougher. You try to shrink your needs to fit into a world built for numbness. But that's not the answer. You don't need to feel less. You need to protect more. Schopenhauer warned that those who feel deeply must learn to guard their inner life as a treasure, because the world will always ask more than it gives, not out of malice, but out of blindness. Most people can't see what you carry, but that doesn't mean it isn't real, and it doesn't mean you have to carry it all. You're not too sensitive, you're just too open, and openness without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. You don't need to numb yourself to survive sensitivity. You need to learn how to live with it, because your depth isn't going away. Your awareness isn't something you can turn off without turning off parts of yourself that make life worth living. So you learn the art of protection. You learn to distinguish what's yours to hold and what isn't. You realize that empathy doesn't mean self-abandonment. You can feel for others without sacrificing yourself. You practice discerning when to open your heart and when to close the gates, not out of cruelty, not out of coldness, but out of self-respect. Because boundaries aren't walls against love. They are the guardians of real love. Love that isn't resentful. Love that isn't performative. Love that isn't extracted from an empty, exhausted well. Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote, "Compassion is the basis of morality." But he also warned, unchecked compassion without wisdom can turn inward and destroy the one who carries it. And that's what sensitivity without boundaries does. It turns your gift against you. You start feeling guilty for having needs, for taking space, for saying no. You start confusing exhaustion with goodness, pain with virtue. But that's not moral. That's martyrdom. And you are not here to be a martyr to everyone else's comfort. You are here to live fully, fiercely, awake. And living fully doesn't mean feeling everything endlessly. It means knowing when to step back, when to shield yourself, when to let some things pass through you without owning them. Because not every sorrow is yours to solve. Not every chaos is yours to clean up. Not every wound you sense needs your tending. Sometimes, seeing more means walking away sooner. Sometimes, feeling deeper means withdrawing earlier. Sometimes, loving harder means loving yourself enough to close the door. This isn't selfishness, it's sustainability. Because your sensitivity is a flame, and flames need protection, or they burn out. You are not too sensitive. You are simply alive at a frequency most people have forgotten exists. And your job is not to dim it. Your job is to safeguard it. Sensitivity is not a weakness to overcome. It's a reality to embrace, and a skill to steward. You are not wrong for feeling deeply. You are not broken for seeing more. You are not dramatic for noticing what others miss. You are simply wired for depth in a world that fears it. And yes, it makes life heavier sometimes. It makes loneliness sharper. It makes existence a little more complex. But it also makes meaning possible. Without sensitivity, there is no real connection, no real compassion, no real art, no real love, no real humanity. Sensitivity is the bridge between seeing the world and truly belonging to it. And protecting that bridge, building the boundaries that keep it standing, is not selfish. It's survival. It's maturity. It's wisdom. You don't need to numb yourself to fit in. You don't need to apologize for feeling the world more acutely than most. You just need to own it, live it, guard it, because the world needs what you see. The world needs what you feel. The world needs the depth you carry, even if it doesn't always understand it, even if it sometimes resents it. You are not too sensitive. You are exactly as sensitive as this world needs, if you are strong enough to stay open. Sensitivity, when protected, becomes a kind of superpower. You notice beauty, Others trample past. You catch the ache in a friend's voice before they even say a word. You read the atmosphere of a room like a living text. You understand people beyond their defenses. You love in ways that make others feel seen, truly seen. You have access to the invisible layers of existence, not just the facts, but the feelings between the facts. And that's rare. In a world obsessed with speed, surface, and spectacle, your sensitivity is an anchor back to what's real. But only if you honor it. Only if you stop treating it like a liability. Only if you stop trying to fix what was never broken. Because trying to erase your sensitivity is like blinding yourself on purpose, just because the light sometimes hurts your eyes. The goal isn't to feel less. The goal is to hold your sensitivity like something sacred, to build a life that protects your depth instead of demanding you flatten it. And that means choosing carefully, choosing environments that nourish you, not deplete you, choosing relationships that understand you, not resent you, choosing work that aligns with your values, not just your paycheck. It means saying no to noise, no to chaos, no to people who demand your softness, but mock it when it's inconvenient. It means building rhythms that honor your nervous system, resting when you need to, withdrawing when you must, moving at a pace that lets your mind and heart actually process what they're absorbing. Because you can't live wide open to everything and expect to survive intact. You are not too sensitive. You are appropriately sensitive to a world that has grown too rough, too loud, too careless. And your gift, your seeing, your feeling, your knowing, is not a burden to crush. It's a responsibility to carry with strength, quiet strength, steady strength, the kind of strength that doesn't harden, but endures.